Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Are we under a financial collapse already and we don't even know it? It's something that I want to talk about today. I've been talking about frequently. In fact, just a few weeks ago I proposed the question, are we under a Great Depression? And we don't even know it. And some of the response, it was kind of mixed. People saying, no, not quite yet, we're getting there. Or absolutely we're there, it's awful. So today, let's crunch some numbers and let's talk about some things that I believe we are in an economic free fall. Whether we're at the point of a Great Depression or not, but I believe that we are seeing an economic free fall. And the media, the politicians, and really on both sides, because this is one issue that it's in their best interest to keep both sides propped up, or both sides, let me rephrase that, it's in their best interest on both sides of the political aisle to keep everyone's belief in the economy propped up. Because, in the end, all those politicians are controlled kind of by the same people, the banks, the corporations, that kind of stuff. So there is this illusion that the economy's on a, bouncing back, that it's this V bouncing back economy that, we kind of bottomed out there for a while and things were bad, at the start of this pandemic. But things are going good now. We're recovering. We're in recovery mode. Except that from a financial and economic perspective, there's nothing that's going on that's in a recovery. In fact, virtually everything that's happening in the economy is showing signs that it is getting worse. I'm going to throw a few images, some graphs today on the screen if it works for me. Sometimes I have some difficulty with my equipment, but we'll see. And to kind of give you an idea of where we're at, or to maybe how bad things are getting. And I'm sure most of you are saying, well, yeah, we know that. The problem is that most people don't know that. And so there's this mass distraction campaign going on. And like I've said before, we're daily being desensitized to just all this havoc and chaos and turmoil and to the point that so many things, whether it's violence and social unrest on the streets, if it's, intrusion and overarching powers of the government, Big Brother coming in to swoop in and take care of us and cure all the health problems, or it's this distraction that the economy is in recovery mode and everything's all right, and just go about your business and everything will be fine. This is what the vast majority of Americans are being told, and many of them believe it. But yet, on the other hand, recent studies, and just my own talking to people, most people have a gut feeling that the worst has not yet come. That we're still, it's going to get worse. And while we may seem like we're in a lull, that it is going to get worse. And I believe that's actually true. There's just too many signs and to indicate that. The one thing that they use, that they, if you watched mainstream news or if you listen to any of these financial experts and stuff that's kind of pushing this narrative that we're in a recovery mode, about the only two things they have that they can say is in recovery or that's doing good is the stock market and the housing market, the housing bond market, the housing market from a interest rate perspective, things like that. It seems to be pretty solid and secure, except that both of those are being manipulated. Number one, the stock market, and I've said it before and you'll hear many others say this, the stock market is never a gauge as to how well the economy is doing. It can fluctuate at times in the same way the economy is fluctuating, but overall, the stock market is pretty much a bunch of wealthy people trying to make as much money as they can before they realize they can't make any more money off of that particular investment. Sure, there's many of us that may dabble in the stock market, or maybe you have excuse me, retirement accounts, investment accounts that are based in stocks. But the vast majority and the big bulk of the stock market is the upper, echelon, the very wealthy, trying to squeeze out every penny they can out of us before they realize that that particular investment is gone. And so while people might be in breadlines and losing their homes, the very wealthy are trading, buying, and selling as much as they can before they, can't do it any longer. So the appearance of financial security based on just looking at the stock market is really, that's just the wrong way to go. So there's that one. The second one is the housing market. The housing market, for the most part right now, has this appearance of being fairly solid. The housing bond market especially, mortgage bonds. Well, a lot of people don't realize this, but since March, the Federal Reserve has bought up somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 trillion in mortgage bonds. In fact, they've bought up so much that 1/3 of the mortgages in the United States now is owned by the Federal Reserve. Early on, when all this started happening back in the first of the year, I said it then and I've said it before, that what we are witnessing, among other things, will be the greatest transfer of wealth in human history. And I think that alone, what I just said about the Federal Reserve, is a very good example of that. The Federal Reserve now owns at least 1/3 of all the homes in America, or at least all the mortgages on those homes. That is vast, and there's no sign that they're slowing down. They are purchasing somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 billion in mortgages every month. Every month. And they're doing that to create this false sense of security that the mortgage bonds are solid and secure. And that one is a good sign of the economy. If those start dropping and companies, banks start dumping those, no one wants to touch them, no one's giving out loans, that is a sign of a downturn in the economy. And so they're buying these up to create this false sense of security that everything's good. So lend more money, buy more houses, and everything will be fine. Except when it comes to the day that people start realizing what they're doing, and banks start realizing it, lenders start realizing it, and they stop lending money, and people aren't able to purchase it, or they're not able to pay for their the mortgages that they've taken out because the economy in every other area absolutely stinks. And then, when that happens, we're going to start seeing the bubble burst. There's other areas. The unemployment. The unemployment right now, while we are being told that it's slightly better, or it's improving from what it was back in March and April, it's absolutely abysmal. If you look at the numbers of how many weeks in a row we have been, that the previous record of unemployment claims in 1 week was back in the 80s. We have broken that record 25 times in a row in the last 25 weeks. There's an estimated 29 million people that are on unemployment right now. And I know a lot of you are saying, yeah, but those people are on unemployment because they're getting more on unemployment than if they worked at their job. It's very possibly true. In some cases it is. Hold on a second. I got something that is in my mouth. It's very possibly true. It doesn't change the fact, though, that these businesses aren't being run, or they're being run on skeletal crews, and a lot of people don't have jobs. And there are a lot of people that are unemployed that aren't making the money that they used to make. There is definitely that, because there's a lot of pending evictions, pending evictions from rental properties like home rental properties, business rental properties, foreclosures on mortgages are at a staggering rate right now. And the only reason that we're not seeing hundreds of thousands of people being kicked out of their homes and homeless is because the CDC and the federal government has stepped in and put moratoriums on a lot of these to hold them off. But most of the moratoriums end around the end of this year. And it's highly unlikely, I can't imagine those continually being extended, because at some point it's all going to catch up with these people. It's going to catch up with the people that are renting, people that are paying their mortgages, because at some point they got to pay that money, right? It's going to catch up with the landlords. The landlord, if you're renting a house, odds are the landlord's paying a mortgage on that house, okay? And then even if his is put on hold where he doesn't have to pay the mortgage, the bank is now losing money. At some point, this is all going to catch up. If you sit down and you start really taking in the full breadth of what's going on just in the economy alone, forget about pandemic, forget about riots, forget about the election, forget about all that other stuff. Just look at the economy alone. It's quite frightening, and it's probably, if you look at the numbers and if you look at everything that's happening on the surface, it's probably worse than this country has ever seen from an economic standpoint. And yet everyone around us, well, not everyone is still thinking that, well, it's okay. We're in recovery mode. There are countless financial experts out there that have written articles in the last few weeks, and there's probably too many. There is too many for me to mention them. But if you that have been writing these articles on how bad things are, and how unlikely it is for them to get better anytime too soon. Then you take all that and you add in this wild card. And the wild card is November 3rd. And like I've said before, I don't believe it, at least in the short term, I don't believe it really matters who wins the election. Because come November 3rd, I think the odds are greatly in the favor that we're not going to know who actually won the election for several days, most likely for several weeks. And because everyone's emotions, everyone's demeanor, everything is on edge. Like America seems to be like a ticking time bomb. Everyone is so upset over all the things going on. The protests, the riots, the politics, the masks, the left versus right paradigm, everything. It's a ticking time bomb. And many, including myself, believe that this delay of the election outcome and the intense fighting leading up to and after that could be that fuse that lights the whole thing off. And so as bad as the economy is right now, that could be the time bomb going off that just causes it to go into a complete free fall and spiral out of control. May not happen. And I'm not trying to get on here and hype it up and to put a lot of fear into you. It's not fear that we need. It's being awake enough and to be, cognizant enough of what's going on so that we can do everything we can to prepare for it. And for a lot of us, being completely and totally prepared for an absolute economic collapse is probably impossible to be completely prepared for it. The upper wealthy, they can. Folks like you and I, we do the best we can. And that's what I'm saying. We have to do the best. If you start really thinking about it, you think, man, I don't have the money to do that. I don't have the money to prepare in that way. I get it. We're in the same place. But you got to do the best that you can. And don't think that America is too big to fail. Look at Venezuela. Venezuela at one time was the second largest economy on the planet. It was the second largest economy in the Western Hemisphere. The amount of oil assets that they had in that nation and the amount of farming assets was astronomical for a South American country. I mean, they ruled down there, and they really were considered in many economic ways equal to us, even though they only produced a couple of things. They are absolutely devastated as a nation. Their economy has crashed. They adopted socialism, hook, line, and sinker, which it seems to be what we're trying to do here in the United States. And there are videos, footage, pictures, first-hand accounts. I actually know someone personally that has recently, in the last few years, moved from Venezuela, was able to get out and saw it happening, where, I mean, there's piles of currency in dumpsters and on the streets because it's worthless, and people are starving to death. There's a thing called the Venezuelan diet because people are starving to death down there. And it was especially bad a couple of years ago. Still bad, and it's going to be bad for a long time there. That can happen here. It's well within the realm of possibility because of so many things that's going on. I'm not saying that it will happen. I'm saying it's certainly within the realm of possibility. There are, just the job loss alone, the amount of businesses that are shut down, the amount of production that has come to a halt in many cases, or is a trickling flow in other cases. The amount of natural disasters that's happened in the last several months that's affected farming and all sorts of agriculture. The amount of damage, dollar damage that's happened in this nation due to hurricanes, flooding, fires, storms, the amount of damage, the riots. I mean, it's just, you just add it all together, and it looks pretty disastrous in a lot of ways. Doesn't mean that we can't survive this. We can, and that's what we do, is we prepare. We think about it. We prepare. We don't dwell on it. We don't live in fear. We get our lives and ourselves ready for it. And so that's what I want to encourage you. And be ready. I know I'm beating this drum a lot lately, but I'm telling you, over the next 2 to 4 months, I have a gut feeling that we're going to start seeing some pretty crazy stuff. I think they're going to push the second wave of this pandemic. And there's every indication that that's what they're drumming up. They're talking about pushing this vaccine. It's the election. It's just one thing after another. And then this looming financial situation. And there's all kinds of rumors going on, and I know the rumors a lot of times are just that. But with all the things that's happening in this obvious, I think, agenda to desensitize us and distract us from the things that they're really doing behind closed doors, we have to be more vigilant, more than ever, and doing every day the things that we can do to become prepared. And so in the end, that's why I'm making these videos. Yes, to inform you, to give you some information, to give you some ideas, but in the end, it's really to encourage you. We have to become more prepared. Aside from just doing these videos, I will help in every way. I mean, I'm limited in time, but certainly let me know in comments or an email. There's all sorts of ways to get in contact with me. I leave them below in the description of all the things and places online that you can find and get a hold of me. I even have a phone number, I believe. I'll check. But there should be a phone number there that you can send text messages if that's something that you would prefer to do. So, folks, I believe this financial collapse is real. And I believe that it's only the beginning. And yes, because it's such a large nation and because the economy is so large, it may not collapse overnight. It may be a slow-moving collapse because it's so big, but at some point, that terminal velocity, we're going to hit it, and it's going to be catastrophic. And because all along, it's happening right now, but it's being propped up fictitiously by the Fed and stock market, things like that. And at some point, those are going to stop working, and it's going to be a disaster. At least it has that possibility. So do the best you can to get prepared, folks. because I think what I see on the horizon doesn't seem too good for a while. Let me know what you think, what you're doing. If you disagree with me, that's good too. I encourage that. I encourage polite disagreements and discussions. Folks, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.